We're going to see that opener. It is a fascinating game in so many ways. You got Love on one side, you got his counterpart Jalen Hurts on the other, looking to bounce back from a tumultuous year and looking to do it without the help of a franchise legend.
We had a great player in Jason Kelce who took on a lot of responsibility, and a result of that, I was told not to worry about a lot of things. And so my eagerness to learn and all of that over the years, kind of was halted because of who we had. But now times are different, and I'm excited for that journey.
What? You did not sound like you liked that.
Well, I don't know if I would admit that, because now teams are going to make sure that they force him to have to do this advanced learning. I mean, if that's the case, I'm shifting, I'm rotating safeties all the time, I'm putting men at the line of scrimmage. We all know that Jason Kelce was responsible for a lot of the line calls and shifts and blitzes. He was an expert at it. He would check into runs to the open side where he would self-pull and get Jalen Hurts comfortable. But now it's more on his table, on his plate, and let's see if he can make those checks. That is a lot to try and process, and also coming back from a tough season. So, we'll see what happens, but that gives me pause for concern that he wasn't aware of what those checks should be. It's one thing to say, let him make it. It's another thing to say, don't worry about it.
Hey, Dan, I've made the point many times that I think that the chasm of possibility with the Jets is so wide. I could see it being unbelievably good. I could see it being totally disastrous. I feel like in Philly, there's a little bit of that as well, right? Like, they're so talented. They should be really good. But with the way it ended last year, if they come out and really lay an egg and look really bad that first month, I don't know that would be as shocking as the talent might suggest.
Because you saw that range of potential outcomes just last year. Right. They were 10-1, and then by the end of the year, they weren't even competitive in a playoff game against Tampa Bay. This stuff that Jalen Hurts is talking about is this inflection point with the young quarterback that we've seen with other guys, right? What's Patrick Mahomes going to do now that Tyreek Hill's not there? What's Dak Prescott going to do now that they don't lean on an Ezekiel Elliott running game in the offensive line? Like, we talked about it with Josh Allen this offseason. Can you make that evolution in your game and that evolution as a leader? That's what Jalen Hurts is talking about. That's what he's confronting. And the answer to that question will determine a lot about the Eagles season and the Eagles' future.
Yeah, that's easy for me. He's a football junkie. His dad was a
yeah,
coach.
I think he can do it.
I think he'll do it. Like, look, when we had Mark Sanchez, the Jets, as a rookie, we had a great veteran line, the Nick Mangolds, the Alan Fanekers of the world. This is, as Dan said, this is the next step. And when so much money is going to these quarterbacks, as we discussed earlier, sometimes these players have to graduate. This time it's into retirement.
Listen,
Okay, so I get this. I mean, listen, using Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill situation, like, to go to the next level, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, like, what are we talking about? They were asking Patrick Mahomes to do something completely different, being down Travis Kelce, and yet he still had, or Tyreek Hill, and yet he still had Travis Kelce. He still had Andy Reid. Like that's that I reject that 100%. I do think it's a very interesting statement that Jalen Hurts made, and that he was kind of, that his eagerness was halted. Like, I think he's kind of saying the quiet part out loud. I kind of agree that it's probably not the best thing to say out loud, and not just because I think it could be exploited necessarily. I just think that's something that you kind of keep to yourself more. Because what they are really saying, because I think it actually, to me, that actually sounds like a little bit bitter. That Jalen Hurts was like, yeah, I had an eagerness, and I was ready to learn and excited, but they just told me to not worry about it, and so I didn't. Right? And that's like, I think there's probably some of that resentment to a degree. Not a lot, but I think it's definitely some of the the unhappiness. And, people talked about how amazing Jason Kelce was, and he is. And people from Philly absolutely love him. He is arguably one of the greatest centers, not one of, like, he's arguably the greatest, but definitely one of the greatest centers in the history of the NFL. So there's no debating that, but, like, he was at the end of his career. He only had so much left in the tank. And you could make the argument that how good was he that final season? And if you're now telling Jalen Hurts to not worry about these things, and Jason Kelce isn't, I don't want to say that he's not doing his job, because I think he was, but not doing it at a level that was actually supporting Jalen Hurts, then it's like, well, Jalen Hurts is like, well, what, like, I'm being hung out to dry here. Like, let me do these things then. Let me take on this responsibility. So I appreciate that Jalen Hurts wants the responsibility. So on with all that being said, like, I do like that he feels this way. I wish he didn't verbalize it, but I do think that it's great that he's like, yes, I want this. Give me this responsibility. I can do it. Because the problem is when you don't do something, it's assumed that you can't do something. And I think that's just, there's a major flaw in that logic. We could just use Brock Purdy as a very silly example. Brock Purdy wasn't super mobile and wasn't running, so people assumed that he can't. For a lot of times, people were saying, oh, Brock Purdy is kind of like a statue-like quarterback. And then come time playoffs, he's kind of running around, and they were like, whoa, where did that come from? So just because someone's not doing something doesn't mean that they can't do something. Because people are going to take that and run with it and say, Jalen Hurts can't do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no. Just because he wasn't asked to do something doesn't mean that he can't do it. And honestly, Jalen Hurts, considering he's had like a different offensive coordinator like every single year since he was in high school. I mean, like, it's been like outrageous. I forget what the final number is, but the dude has been coached by just a million people, a million different offenses, and has consistently been able to not only survive, but thrive. I think, of course, he will be able to do that. I do think that Kellen Moore is kind of the perfect personality to be able to work with Jalen Hurts. Kellen Moore is not one of these more big ego, rough and tough guys. I think that's why, like, you know, it'll be able to allow Jalen Hurts' personality to come through. Patrick Mahomes kind of gave a recent interview where he kind of talked about that, you know, Andy Reid lets him be himself, right? He still obviously coaches him and they work together obviously incredibly closely, but he still leaves room for Patrick Mahomes to be himself. And I really do believe that Kellen Moore will be able to have that relationship with Jalen Hurts. And I think that can go very, very long. I feel like that can go a very long ways. Sometimes you do get a coordinator and offensive coach that it is very much my way or the highway. We see that in Sean Payton, for instance. And sometimes that can be great. That really can be great. You need the right quarterback to be able to do that. Patrick Mahomes would not thrive with a Sean Payton. Josh Allen would not thrive with a Sean Payton. I just don't see it. They would still win and could still win Super Bowls even, but just not, you know, I think those types of quarterbacks need more of a collaboration. Brock Purdy would thrive with the Sean Payton, would thrive with the Shanahan. Shanahan tells me to do 1 + 1 = 2. I do 1 + 1 = 2. I don't try to think about anything else. I'm just doing it. What Shanahan tells me to do, I do. And I think it works very, very well. And I think to a degree, Jalen Hurts can kind of go either way. Jalen Hurts wants to be able to do some of these things. He wants to be able to play football his way, but he's more than willing to take the back seat, which is what I think he did with Shane Steichen. I think Shane Steichen is a lot more like, hey, like, you know, you're going to listen to me. But I think Shane Steichen is also kind of a bridge, which is kind of very similar to a Sean McVay and Shanahan to a degree, but Shanahan has not had that level of talent just yet, or at least consistently over years, with a mature seasoned veteran to be able to be like, listen, we're going to play your way and my way. You're going to listen to me, and when it's time to listen to me, you're just going to do what I say. And when there's room for you to kind of take the game into your own hands, by all means, go do it. It's none of these things are 100% binary, right? It's not all or nothing. But we know very confident Jalen Hurts definitely took a back seat in 22, followed what Shane Steichen wanted him to do, and he was consistently put in a position to succeed. So there was no reason for Jalen Hurts to go outside himself. But with that said, I think he did go outside himself come time the playoffs, especially the Super Bowl, and he thrived. He absolutely thrived. When you look at how that game unfolded, it was off script. What Jalen Hurts was doing, how he was succeeding in that Super Bowl, was off script. And so I think Jalen Hurts, again, it's not to say that I'm thinking that this season Jalen Hurts is just going to be all off script and that's what it takes for him to win and to be good. But I just think that if we give a little bit more responsibility, power, control, whatever words we want to use to Jalen Hurts, I don't think we should make the assumption that he can't handle it. And if anything, all signs prove that he will greatly be able to thrive in it. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think Jalen Hurts can be trusted to learn the new offense with no Jason Kelce? Kind of an absurd question if you ask me, but we'll ask it just for fun. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.